Picture this. You've just signed the papers. The keys are in your hand. You're standing in the front foyer of a luxury apartment complex. The listing promised seamless living. No fumbling for keys in the rain. No worrying about hiding spares under the mat. Just a sleek, brushed metal keypad on your front door. You punch in your 4-digit code. The light turns green. The bolt retracts with a smooth thunk. You step inside, exhale, and finally, you feel like you're home. It feels convenient. It feels safe. But here's the twist that you didn't see in the brochure. Every time you type in that code, you aren't just unlocking a door. You're sending a packet of data, a timestamp, your unique user ID, the duration of your entry. It flies up to a cloud server owned by a third-party vendor. Maybe it's August. Maybe it's Yale Access. Maybe it's some obscure property management software as a service vendor you've never heard of. And that data, it doesn't just disappear. It's logged, stored, and analyzed. You think you're renting a space. 4 walls, a roof, a place to rest your head. But in reality, you're renting a node in a network. Your landlord isn't just watching the hallway anymore. They're watching when you come home. They know how long you stay. They know if you have a guest, and if that guest stays past midnight. They know if you're working late, or if you're sick in bed, or if you've moved out without telling them. And here's the part that really stings. Unlike the smart vacuum that you bought yourself, the one you could unplug or reset or even throw away, you didn't get to choose the brand on this. You didn't get to negotiate the privacy policy. You took the lease, or you took to the street. Welcome to the digital lease, where the key opens the door, but the code opens the database. I'm Pseudo, and this is Impractical Privacy. And today we're talking about the invisible landlord watching you from the cloud. So you've signed the lease. You've walked through the door. But the surveillance doesn't stop at the threshold. It's woven into the very walls where you live. Let's break down the tech stack of the modern rental. First, the smart lock. You think it's just convenience. You punch in your code, or maybe you use your phone to unlock it. But behind that sleek keypad is a logger. Every entry, every exit, every time you let a friend or a delivery person in or out, it's stamped with a timestamp and uploaded. Some systems let you generate guest codes that expire after a day. That sounds secure, right? But here's the catch. The history of those codes. The fact that you used a guest code at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, that data is stored forever. It's a permanent log of your social life. And then there's the smart thermostat. Maybe it's a Nest. Maybe it's an Ecobee. The landlord installed it to save energy. But these devices are learning machines. They don't just regulate temperature. They regulate behavior. They learn your schedule. If the house stays at 70 degrees for 3 days straight, the system doesn't just think you're saving money. It flags potential vacancy. It alerts the property management that the unit might be empty. Your absence becomes a data point. And it gets deeper. Water sensors. These are usually marketed as leak detectors. Protect your property, they say. But in the wrong hands, they're occupancy sensors. If water flows at 3 a.m., the algorithm infers that you're showering. If no water flows for 48 hours, the system assumes you've moved out. Your hygiene habits, your sleep schedule, your presence in the home, all inferred from a pipe. Finally, the smart package locker. It tracks every delivery. It knows what you buy, how often, and from whom. It builds a consumption profile that is far more detailed than your credit card statement. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but that data stays with the landlord, right? It's just for maintenance. Wrong. That data rarely stays in the building. It flows. It goes to property management software, where algorithms automate maintenance. Tenant A is home, send the plumber now. Tenant B hasn't been home in a week, schedule a wellness check. It goes to data brokers. Yes, your entry logs and thermostat data are aggregated, anonymized so they claim, and sold to insurance companies or marketing firms. They build a profile of your lifestyle without you ever clicking agree. And perhaps most chillingly, it goes to law enforcement. In many jurisdictions, police can request entry logs for a specific unit without a warrant. Why? Because the court views it as business records held by the landlord, not private residence data protected by the Fourth Amendment. Your digital footprint in your home is treated as public business. And did you agree to all this? You didn't. Not really. It's buried in paragraph 14 of your lease. A tiny clause that reads, "The tenant agrees to the installation of smart building technologies for safety and efficiency." That's it. No negotiation, no opt-out, no discussion. You took the lease, or you took to the street. You didn't consent to the surveillance. You consented to the housing. And in the digital age, those two things have become inseparable. This is the smart trap, a web of sensors, data flows, and legal loopholes that turn your home into a glass box. And the worst part, you can't just unplug it. So far, we've talked about your data, your code, your thermostat, your water usage. But here's where the smart trap gets messy. It's not just about you. It's about everyone who walks through your door. Think about your partner, your kids, your friends who come over for dinner. They walk through that smart lock. They punch in a code or they tap their phone against the reader. They didn't sign the lease. They didn't agree to the privacy policy. They didn't consent to have their presence logged in a cloud database owned by a property management firm. But the system doesn't care about consent. It cares about data. Every time your partner enters at 6 p.m. on a Friday, it's logged. Every time your friend stays until 2 a.m., it's recorded. Over time, this isn't just a log. It's a map of your social life. And then there's the patterns of life. Algorithms are good at finding patterns, like really good. If the door opens at 3 a.m. and again at 10 a.m., the system infers you work nights. If a new code appears constantly on weekends, the system thinks that you have a new partner. If the water sensors go silent for 48 hours, the system infers that you're sick or that you've moved out. You are living your life, but the algorithm is building a profile of your existence that's more detailed than your own memory. It knows your routine better than you do, and it's storing that in a server farm somewhere, waiting for someone to query it. Now let's talk about the risk. the real risk. In some jurisdictions, failure to occupy is grounds for eviction. It's a clause meant to prevent squatting. But in the age of smart buildings, who decides if you've occupied the space? If the smart lock data shows that you haven't entered in 14 days, does the landlord have the right to kick you out based on the algorithm's guess? Maybe you were on vacation. Maybe you were staying with family. Maybe you were in the hospital. But the data says unit vacant, and the system flags it for review. This isn't science fiction. This is the edge of where automation meets human rights. We are handing the power to evict someone from their home to a piece of software that doesn't understand context. It doesn't understand life. It only aggregates data. You've invited your friends in for a night of laughter. The building logged it as a security event. You lived your life, but the system flagged it as a risk. This is the bystander problem. When your home becomes a node in a network, everyone who enters it becomes a data point, and none of them asked for that. So, where does the law stand on this? Can you actually be evicted by a bot? And more importantly, what can you do about it? So we have the tech. We have the data flow. We have the impact on your guests. Now let's ask the question that keeps privacy advocates awake at night. Where is the law? The short answer, it's nowhere. Or at least it's in a very deep, very dark hole. We are living in a massive legal gap. In most jurisdictions, there are no specific laws protecting tenant data generated by building infrastructure. We have laws for medical records. We have laws for financial data. We have laws for your phone calls. But what about the log that says that you came home at 11:43 p.m.? What about the thermostat reading that proves you were asleep? Legally, that data often falls into a void. It's not medical, it's not financial, it's just building operations. And in the eyes of the law, operations often trump privacy. This brings us to the reasonable expectation of privacy. This is the cornerstone of privacy law. You have a reasonable expectation of privacy in your bedroom. You don't have one on the sidewalk. But where does your apartment end and the common area begin? Courts are currently struggling with this. Is a smart lock log private because it's on your front door? Or is it public because the door is part of a shared building managed by a corporation? Some courts are leaning toward the idea that if the landlord owns the lock, the data belongs to the landlord. That means your entry log is a business record, not a private diary. And business records, they can be subpoenaed, they can be sold, they can be shared. And here's the kicker that makes it even harder to fight back. The right to repair. You might be thinking, fine, I'll just rip the smart lock out and put on a dumb deadbolt. You can't, because the landlord owns the hardware. The lease says the building must remain secured according to management standards. If you remove the smart lock, you're in breach of contract. You're technically breaking the lease. So you're forced to use their surveillance tool. You're forced to interact with their system. You have no right to repair your own privacy. You're locked into their ecosystem, literally and figuratively. This is the legal gray zone, a place where technology has sprinted ahead of legislation, leaving tenants with no shield. We are treating your home like a commercial asset, not a sanctuary. And until the law catches up, You're the one paying the price. But just because the law is gray doesn't mean you're powerless. There are strategies, there are workarounds, and there is a growing movement to change the rules. Let's talk about how you can fight back. Okay, the law is broken. The tech is invasive. The landlord holds the keys. It sounds hopeless, but I promise it's not. Just because you can't tear the walls down doesn't mean you can't build a shield. Here are 5 strategies to reclaim your privacy, even in a smart building. Strategy 1, the dumb override. Can you install a physical deadbolt over the smart lock? In many cases, yes. It might look a little clunky, but it adds a layer of mechanical security that the cloud can't see. Check your lease first. Some landlords forbid modifications, but if you can get away with it, a deadbolt is a silent guardian. Or ask for a mechanical key. Many smart locks have a backup keyhole. If you can get the landlord to give you a physical key, you can bypass the keypad entirely. No code entry, no digital log. And if you must use the code, use the code rot trick. Change your code every week. Don't use your birthday. Don't use a pattern like 1, 2, 3, 4. Use a random string. If the landlord sees a code change every Monday, they can't build a profile of your routine. You're just noise in their data stream. Strategy 2, the guest firewall. Your friends and family didn't sign up for a lease. Protect them. Never give guests a permanent code. Use the temporary codes that expire after 24 hours. And here's the radical part. Tell them. Tell your partner, hey, the door logs everything. If you want to be anonymous, don't use the keypad. Wait for me to open it manually. It's inconvenient. It is impractical. But it breaks the chain of data. You are teaching your community to opt out of the surveillance state, one visit at a time. Strategy 3, the data request. This is your right. Under GDPR in Europe or CCPA in California, you have the right to know what data is being held about you. Send a formal request to your landlord or property management. Ask, what data is collected on my unit? Who has access to my entry logs? And is this data sold to third parties? Force them to answer. Even if they say, we don't sell data, the act of asking makes them accountable. It puts a spotlight on their practices. And sometimes, just knowing the answer is enough to make you change your behavior. Strategy 4, the analog shield. If you have a smart thermostat, stop letting it learn. Set it to a manual schedule that doesn't reflect your life. Keep it at 72 degrees all day, every day. If the data looks flat, the algorithm can't infer when you're home or away. And if you have water sensors or motion detectors, cover them. A piece of electrical tape or aluminum foil will blind a sensor. Check your lease. But if you can do it without damaging the unit, you're effectively turning off their sensors. Strategy 5, the collective action. This is the most powerful one. You are not alone. Join or form a tenant union. Bring this up at the next meeting. Demand a privacy clause in the lease. Ask for a ban on data collection without explicit written consent. Push for local ordinances. Tell your city council, we need laws that protect tenant data. We need to ban landlords from selling occupancy logs. Change doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens when we organize, when we demand better. These strategies might seem small, a deadbolt, a covered sensor, a letter, But they are acts of resistance. There are ways to say, my home is mine, my data is mine, and I will not be a passive node in your network. It's not easy. It's not always practical, but it is necessary. So, where do we go from here? Is the future of housing just a glass box of data points? Not necessarily. There's a glimmer of hope. We're starting to see the emergence of privacy-first housing developments. Some forward-thinking landlords and developers are realizing something profound. Trust is a better retention tool than surveillance. When you treat your tenants like adults, not suspects, they stay longer. They care more about the property. They build a community. They don't need a smart lock to feel safe. They need to feel respected. The market is shifting. And when the market shifts, the law follows. So, here's my call to action for you. Next time you sign a lease, don't just skim the fine print. Look for the technology clause. Read it. Ask the landlord, what data is collected? Who owns it? Can I opt out? Don't be afraid to ask. If they hesitate, if they say it's standard, or if they say, no, you can't opt out, then maybe it's time to find a new home. I know, it's hard to move. It's expensive. It's exhausting. But your sanctuary is worth the hunt. Your privacy is worth the search. Don't settle for a home that watches you. Find one that protects you. We are building a world where our homes are sanctuaries again, not nodes in a network, not data points for a broker, just homes. It starts with you. It starts with the questions you ask, and it starts with the choices you make. I'm Pseudo, and this is Impractical Privacy. Remember, a key opens a door. A code opens a database. Choose wisely.